Welcome everyone, join us today as we delve into the incredible life of Eric Burdon, the voice of the animals, whose powerful sound defined the British invasion and beyond. From his Newcastle roots to global fame, this is his journey. So let's dive in. Eric Victor Burdon, born the 11th of May 1941, in Walker, Newcastle upon Tyne, England. Born in the industrial northeast side of England, Eric's arrival came during the darkest days of World War II, when the city was regularly targeted by German air raids. Newcastle was a working-class town of shipyards, coal mines and factories, where smoke and hardship filled the air. His family, including sister Irene, lived in a small council house, and like most in his neighborhood, they were no strangers to poverty. His father, Matt, worked as a fitter and electrician, while his mother held the family together through the scarcity of wartime Britain. Eric was a small and sickly child, suffering from asthma and breathing problems that plagued him for much of his youth. But if his health was fragile, his spirit was anything but. He grew up surrounded by a community of tough, hard-working Geordies who taught him resilience and pride, and music became his escape. From an early age, Eric was captivated by the sounds drifting out of radios and the records passed around by American servicemen stationed in Britain. He was especially drawn to blues, jazz, and early rock and roll, and the raw emotion of voices like John Lee Hooker, Ray Charles, and Howlin' Wolf spoke directly to him in a way nothing else did. At school, Eric was never a strong academic. He struggled with authority and often felt out of place. But he found refuge in the art room, where he showed a natural talent for drawing and painting. That gift earned him a place at the Newcastle College of Art and Industrial Design, a progressive step for a working-class boy at the time. It was at art school that Eric began experimenting with performance, music, and the bohemian lifestyle that was just beginning to take hold in Britain, and where he would first meet John Steele, the original drummer for the Animals. By his teenage years, Eric's passion for music had outgrown the classroom. He began sneaking into the jazz clubs and dance halls of Newcastle, especially the Downbeat, where he first encountered live rhythm and blues. His small frame and asthma made him an unlikely candidate for the rough-and-tumble life of a rock and roll singer, but Eric had something that set him apart, a voice of incredible power and grit. Even as a teenager, his voice carried a depth of soul and pain that belied his years. In the late 1950s, Eric began singing with skiffle groups and local bands, soaking up influences from every record he could get his hands on. By the early 1960s, he had gravitated toward the tune jazz and blues scene, where musicians like Alan Price, Hilton Valentine, John Steele, and Chas Chandler were already making a name for themselves. These were the men who would soon join forces with him to form one of the most important bands of the British invasion. In 1962, Eric became the frontman for a rhythm and blues outfit called the Alan Price Rhythm and Blues Combo, named after their keyboardist. The group played a gritty, American-inspired style of blues that set them apart from the many pop acts dominating Britain at the time. By 1963, they had changed their name to the Animals, a nickname rumored to reflect their wild stage presence and raw sound. With Eric's searing vocals, Alan Price's commanding organ, Hilton Valentine's jangling guitar, Chas Chandler's steady bass, and John Steele's solid drumming, the Animals quickly became the pride of Newcastle's club scene. Their reputation spread as they played intense live sets, with Eric prowling the stage like a man possessed. His voice, deep, raw, and soaked in blues, became their defining feature. By 1964, the Animals were swept up in the British beat boom, alongside the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Yardbirds. They moved to London and signed to EMI's Columbia label under the guidance of producer Mickey Most. That same year, they released what would become their signature song, The House of the Rising Sun. The track, a traditional folk ballad reimagined as a haunting rock anthem, was released in June 1964. It soared to number 1 on both the UK and US charts, making the Animals one of the first British invasion bands to break through in America. For Eric, it was the moment his childhood dreams of escaping Newcastle's smoky streets had finally come true. They toured relentlessly, riding the wave of the British invasion, and scored more hits with songs like Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, It's My Life, We Gotta Get Out of This Place, and Bring It On Home to Me. Each track carried Eric's unmistakable growl, a sound that captured the frustration, rebellion, and working-class anger of the 1960s youth. But behind the scenes, tensions were already brewing. Fame brought money, women, and pressure, and disagreements over management and finances soon divided the band. By 1966, Alan Price had left due to personal and financial disputes, as well as exhaustion, and within a year the original lineup had collapsed. Eric, however, was not ready to give up. He regrouped with new musicians, forming Eric Burdon and the Animals, a more psychedelic-leaning version of the band that would carry him into the next chapter of his career. By 1967, the world of popular music was rapidly changing. The raw R&B that had defined the early Animals was giving way to psychedelic experimentation, the counterculture, and the era of flower power. Eric, always restless and hungry for new directions, embraced the shift wholeheartedly. He reformed the band with a new lineup that included Vic Briggs on guitar, Danny McCulloch on bass, Barry Jenkins on drums, and John Whiter on multi-instruments. This new incarnation was steeped in the psychedelic ethos of the late 60s. Their music took on a more experimental edge, blending blues with extended jams, surreal imagery, and lyrics reflecting the social upheaval of the era. In 1967, they released the album Winds of Change, a record that marked Eric's evolution from gritty blues shouter to psychedelic frontman. Songs like San Franciscan Nights and Good Times reflected his immersion in the American counterculture, particularly the hippie scene of San Francisco. Eric had become fascinated with the West Coast of the United States, not just its music, but its politics, its art, and its sense of freedom. He spent time in California, mingling with other icons of the era, including Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and Jimi Hendrix, with whom he struck up a close friendship. Eric often spoke of Hendrix as a kindred spirit, someone who shared his intensity, his love for the blues, and his appetite for pushing boundaries. In fact, Eric was present at some of Hendrix's final performances, and their bond became one of the most important friendships of his life. The psychedelic Animals followed Winds of Change with albums such as The Twain Shall Meet, in 1968, featuring tracks like Sky Pilot, a powerful anti-war anthem, and Monterey, a celebration of the 1967 Monterey Pop Festival that Eric had attended and deeply admired. The band became known for their socially conscious lyrics, embracing themes of peace, love, and protest. Yet, despite critical acclaim, commercial success proved harder to sustain. By 1969, Eric was once again restless. The psychedelic Animals fell apart under the same pressures that had plagued the first lineup: financial troubles, drug use, and constant touring. Eric, however, had already begun looking toward a new sound, one that reflected his growing love for soul, funk, and Black American music. That year, fate introduced him to a group of talented musicians from Long Beach, California, a funk and soul collective known as Night Shift. When they jammed together, the chemistry was immediate. Eric rechristened the band War, a name that reflected both the turbulence of the times and the fiery energy of their sound. Eric Burdon and War debuted in 1969, blending rock, funk, soul, jazz, and Latin influences into a sound that was entirely their own. Unlike the blues-driven Animals, War was a groove-heavy band, built on rhythm and atmosphere. Eric's commanding vocals added grit and urgency, while the band's multi-racial lineup embodied the diversity and experimentation of the late 60s and early 70s. Their debut together, Eric Burdon Declares War, in 1970, announced their arrival with confidence. The album's standout track, Spill the Wine, became an international hit, reaching the top 3 in the United States. With its laid-back groove, surreal spoken word sections, and Eric's playful vocal delivery, the song became a staple of FM radio and remains one of his most iconic recordings outside of the Animals. For Eric, War represented freedom, thriving in the looser, improvisational style, where songs often stretched out into lengthy jams. The group's live shows became legendary for their energy and unpredictability, with Eric leading the band through extended explorations of funk rhythms and blues improvisation. However, the partnership was short-lived. In 1971, during a European tour, Eric abruptly left War. Accounts differ on why, some point to exhaustion, while others to disagreements with the band and management. Whatever the reason, War went on to great success without him, scoring hits like Low Rider and Why Can't We Be Friends, while Eric returned once more to life as a solo artist. The 1970s were a turbulent but creative period for Eric. Freed from the confines of a band, he embarked on a solo career that saw him exploring an eclectic range of styles. His early albums included Guilty, in 1971, a collaboration with blues singer Jimmy Witherspoon, and Sun Secrets, in 1974, which leaned heavily on hard rock. In 1977, he released Survivor, a deeply personal record that reflected both his struggles and his resilience. The title was no accident. By this time, Eric had lived through multiple band breakups, the deaths of close friends like Jimi Hendrix, and his own battles with addiction, yet he continued to reinvent himself, refusing to be tied down to one sound or one identity. Eric also experimented with film and stage during this period, appearing in movies like Comeback, and even dabbling in writing. His autobiography, I Used to Be an Animal But I'm All Right Now, published in 1986, gave fans a candid look at his chaotic but extraordinary life. Although Eric had walked away from both versions of the Animals, the pull of his old band was never far behind. By the late 1970s, nostalgia for the British invasion era was strong, and promoters saw the potential in reviving the name. In 1975, Eric reunited with original members Chas Chandler, Alan Price, Hilton Valentine, and John Steele for a one-off benefit concert in Newcastle. The chemistry was still there, even after nearly a decade apart, and the following year the original Animals officially reformed. In 1977, they released Before We Were So Rudely Interrupted, an album that returned to their blues roots. Although it didn't set the charts alight, critics praised it as a strong and soulful effort, proving that the old magic still lingered. A second reunion came in 1983, resulting in the album Arc, which leaned more toward the polished rock sound of the era. The band toured extensively in support of the album, playing to large audiences eager to hear their classic hits once more. But, as history had shown, the Animals were a volatile mix. Personal differences soon resurfaced, and the reunion fell apart once again, with Eric later reflecting, while the band had undeniable power on stage, the business side always seemed to poison the well. Still, these reunions reinforced the enduring legacy of the Animals, and reminded audiences just how crucial their contribution had been to the evolution of rock music. Through the 1980s and beyond, Eric carried on as a solo artist, cementing his reputation as one of rock's most distinctive voices. He was never afraid to experiment, moving between blues, rock, funk, and even electronic influences at times. His solo albums included Power Company, in 1983, I Used to Be an Animal, in 1988, and Lost Within the Halls of Fame, in 1995. Each release showed Eric's restless nature. He wasn't chasing trends, but rather following his own instincts, wherever they led him. Live performance remained his greatest strength. With his raw, passionate delivery, Eric continued to captivate audiences well into his later years. He toured extensively, not just in Europe and America, but across the world, often with his band known as Eric Burdon and the New Animals. These shows mixed the hits, with deep cuts and new material, proving that Eric was never content to simply coast on nostalgia. In the 2000s, he collaborated with a wide variety of artists, from blues musicians to contemporary rock bands, always keen to stretch beyond the boundaries of his past. His 2004 album My Secret Life, and the 2006 follow-up Soul of a Man, showed him still in fine form, exploring mature themes with a mixture of grit and wisdom. In the 2010s, Eric enjoyed a late career resurgence with his 2013 album, Till Your River Runs Dry, praised for its mix of political commentary and personal reflection. Songs like Water showed he was still tackling important issues, while appearances in documentaries and interviews highlighted his role as an elder statesman of rock. Away from the stage, Eric Burdon's personal life has been as colorful and eventful as his career. In the 1960s, during the height of the Animals' fame, he lived the archetypal rock and roll lifestyle, a blur of tours, parties, and relationships. In 1967, Eric married Anglo-Indian model Angie King, who left him for Jimi Hendrix in 1968, and they divorced in 1969. Later, Angie would be tragically killed in 1992 by an estranged partner. In 1972, he married Rose Marks, with whom he had a daughter, Alex Burdon. Their marriage was short-lived, ending in divorce, but Eric has always maintained a close relationship with his daughter. Next, in 1999, he married a Greek woman, lawyer Mariana Proestou, with whom he has enjoyed a long relationship with. Like many of his contemporaries, Eric has faced health issues in later life. Years of hard living and relentless touring took a toll, and by the 2000s he was dealing with back problems, respiratory issues, and the general wear and tear of a life on the road. Yet, he has never allowed health concerns to silence him. Even as touring slowed, Eric has continued recording, writing, and appearing at special events. Even into his 80s, Eric continues to create, releasing the 2024 single Don't Ever Leave, with Greek artists Quasimodo and Alex Sid, and performing live occasionally. Rhino Records honored his legacy in 2025 with Eric Burdon and War, the complete CD collection, celebrating his groundbreaking work with the band. His influence has been widely recognized, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the Animals in 1994, receiving the Ivor Novello Lifetime Achievement Award in 1996, and named among Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Singers of All Time. Eric Burdon remains a powerful voice of rock, soul, and social conscience, a survivor, performer, and storyteller whose music continues to inspire new generations. Through every note and every stage, Eric's music is not only entertaining the world, but speaking to the heart, leaving a legacy that will resonate for generations to come. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Take care and bye for now.